You've seen those old maps of the world. Europe is meticulously detailed, Asia gets a decent amount of attention, and then there's Africa. Between the Roman bits at the top and the vague promise of lions at the bottom, there's usually, well, a whole lot of nothing. An enormous, conveniently empty space. It gives you the impression that for thousands of years, an entire continent was just sitting around, waiting for history to happen to it. This is, to put it mildly, a load of nonsense. That supposedly empty space was filled with empires, inventors, and world-shaping powers that didn't need anyone else's permission to be important. They were just busy running their corners of the world, blissfully unaware they were supposed to be undiscovered. Let's start with Egypt's southern neighbor, the Kingdom of Kush. For centuries, the relationship was a classic case of complicated neighbors. They traded, they fought, they copied each other's homework. Egypt, in its more arrogant phases, saw Kush as a backwater to be controlled, a source of gold, soldiers, and exotic animals. The Kushites, however, had a very long memory and an incredible sense of irony. So, around 744 BCE, after watching Egypt descend into chaos and infighting, the Kushite king Paye looked north and basically said, "You guys are making a mess of this." And then he invaded and took over, founding Egypt's 25th dynasty. It's the ultimate hold my beer moment in ancient history. After getting kicked out of Egypt by the Assyrians, who nobody enjoys fighting, the Kushites moved their capital south to Meroe. Here, they leaned into their own unique culture. They developed the Meroitic script, an alphabet that, to this day, we can't fully decipher. It's a fantastic power move, leaving behind thousands of documents that we can read aloud but have no idea what they mean. Meroe also became a powerhouse of iron production. We're talking industrial scale. Archaeologists have found massive slag heaps, the waste product of smelting, so large they were mistaken for natural hills. This wasn't a village forge, this was the Birmingham of ancient Africa, pumping out weapons and tools that gave them a massive edge. They were innovating, not imitating. And they weren't afraid to use that power. Kushite society gave significant authority to women, particularly the queen mothers, known as the Kandakes. The Romans, fresh off conquering Egypt in 30 BCE, found this out the hard way. The Roman governor tried to impose taxes, and the reigning Kandake, Amani Reinas, responded by sacking Roman towns and, famously, tearing the head off of a statue of Emperor Augustus. She was a one-eyed warrior queen who had lost an eye in a previous battle, which you'd think would be a sign to not mess with her. After years of fighting, the unstoppable Roman Empire signed a peace treaty with Kush, withdrew its forces, and canceled the tax demands. Augustus Caesar, master of the known world, met his match in a one-eyed queen from Nubia. Meanwhile, over on the other side of the continent, in what is now Ethiopia and Eritrea, the Aksumite Empire was becoming a global trade hub. Their location was perfect, right on the Red Sea, connecting the Roman Mediterranean with the wealth of India and beyond. They were the essential middlemen, the ancient world's version of a massive shipping and logistics company. Frankincense, myrrh, ivory, and tortoise shells went out, cloth, wine, and metal goods came in. They weren't just a pass-through either. Aksum was so confident in its place in the world that it was one of the first African empires to mint its own coins, stamping the face of their king on gold, silver, and bronze. That's the ancient equivalent of putting up a giant billboard that says, "We're a big deal." Like any self-respecting ancient superpower, Aksum had an obsession with ridiculously large stone monuments. We're talking about stelae, or obelisks, carved from a single piece of granite. The biggest one, the Great Stele, was over 100 feet tall and weighed more than 500 tons. It's the largest single stone humans have ever tried to erect. Note the word tried. It fell and broke during construction, which is a wonderfully human touch. Under King Ezana in the 4th century CE, Aksum also became one of the first empires in the world to officially adopt Christianity. They announced this historic shift in the most low-key way possible, by carving it onto another giant stone monument and putting crosses on all their coins. Subtlety was clearly not their strength. So, where did this global player go? Aksum's decline was a slow, painful fade rather than a dramatic collapse. Part of it was environmental. Centuries of farming and deforestation led to soil erosion and climate shifts, making the land less productive. Your empire can't project power when it can't feed itself. The other major blow was geopolitical. The rise of Islam and the Persian Empire in the 7th century shifted the main trade routes, cutting Aksum off from the Red Sea and its primary source of wealth. Gradually, they were isolated, their power receded into the Ethiopian highlands, and the world they had helped connect simply forgot about them. Proof that even a world-class economy can be taken down by bad weather and changing shipping lanes. Now for something completely different. In what is now Nigeria, around 1500 BCE, lived the Nok people. And that is almost everything we can say about them for certain. We don't know what they called themselves, what their political structure was, or what they believed. They are historical ghosts. Except for one thing. They left behind some of the most stunning art in African history. Life-sized terracotta sculptures of human heads with elaborate hairstyles, expressive faces, and a level of artistry that is just staggering. Finding Nok sculptures is like discovering a collection of Renaissance masterpieces in a society that left no written records. It's incredibly frustrating for historians, but you have to admire the commitment to just making cool stuff and not worrying about the paperwork. The Nok are not just an artistic mystery, they're a technological one. They appear to be one of the earliest iron smelting societies in West Africa, with evidence dating back to at least 500 BCE. What's bizarre is that they seem to have skipped a step. Most cultures go from Stone Age to Bronze Age to Iron Age. The Nok just jumped straight from stone tools to sophisticated iron smelting. It's the historical equivalent of going from a horse and buggy directly to a sports car. Why? Nobody knows for sure. Maybe the raw materials for bronze weren't readily available. Or, perhaps more likely, they were just too busy perfecting their incredible terracotta art to bother with a whole metallurgical age. Priorities, you know. Finally, let's head south to the medieval empire of Great Zimbabwe. Between the 11th and 15th centuries, they built a city of stone that still boggles the mind. We're not talking about mud bricks, we're talking about a massive complex of walls and towers built from granite blocks, all expertly fitted together without a drop of mortar. The most famous part, the Great Enclosure, has walls over 36 feet high and 16 feet thick. This was the capital of a huge trading empire, home to an estimated 18,000 people. It was a statement, a declaration of power and permanence written in stone. And, like the Nok, they didn't leave any written explanation for any of it. It's like they knew future generations would have questions and collectively decided it would be funnier to say nothing. This wasn't some isolated kingdom. Great Zimbabwe was plugged into global trade networks. It controlled the gold mines of the interior and the ivory trade, funneling these goods to port cities on the Swahili coast, where they were shipped across the Indian Ocean. Archaeologists at the site have found artifacts from all over the world: Chinese Celadon porcelain, engraved glass from Syria, Persian pottery. This place was a cosmopolitan hub, which makes the reaction of early European colonists all the more ridiculous. They stumbled upon these magnificent ruins, and their immediate conclusion was, anyone but the local Africans must have built it. Phoenicians, Egyptians, maybe even the Queen of Sheba. The mental gymnastics involved in ignoring the obvious local origin are truly Olympic level. So, why did this great city empty out? Again, it was likely death by 1,000 cuts. The land may have become overgrazed, the nearby gold mines exhausted. Most importantly, the trade routes shifted. New powers emerged, and the economic currents that had made Zimbabwe rich began to flow elsewhere. By the late 15th century, the city was largely abandoned. These kingdoms weren't lost in the sense of being mythical, they were real, powerful, and influential. They are lost only because the stories we choose to tell about history often have a very narrow focus. They were just living their own histories, not waiting to be footnotes in someone else's. Maybe the map wasn't empty, maybe we were just reading it wrong. If you enjoyed this video, please like, comment, and subscribe to our channel for more historical insights. Thanks for watching, nerds.